feedback should be constantly given, but it shouldn't be part of a process. We've all been with that manager that says thank you at the end of the day. What are you thankful for?
Darren, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you here as the resident expert in all things to do with leadership, management, coaching and mentoring. Today we're talking about feedback. And for me, this is something that I've had to develop skills with over a period of time throughout my career. And sometimes we're happy to give it and sometimes we're not so happy to give feedback. So we're going to unpack that and give some tips and tricks, and then we'll give our 3 leadership sound bites at the end, which hopefully those 3 key sort of nuggets that people can take away and put into practice. And that will help our L&D and HR professionals, and that will help them look after and support their teams as well, because feedback will resonate throughout the whole of the business. So look, feedback's something we have to do every day, isn't it?
Feedback is something that we're doing constantly. Even, when we're at home and we make someone a cup of tea and they say thank you, that's feedback of appreciation for you doing something for them. And I think that's really important, because both in work and outside of work, we sometimes use feedback as developmental or a negative, where actually feedback is both a positive and a negative. And we are trying to give them that feedback of basically, here's some appreciation, so I want you to do more of this, or some developmental feedback, I want you to do less of this. And this is just general life again, actually, with your kids, with your partner, with employees at work, and sometimes even people you meet on the street. Actually, it's just that constant conversation and that reinforcement of certain behaviours, attitudes, skills or knowledge.
Yeah, I always like to think of it as sharing that information, because if no one ever gives me any feedback, I'm just going to carry on doing the same thing, because I feel like I'm doing my best all the time, and whether my best is the right thing or whether I've gone off track with that, if no one ever supports me, helps me grow, helps me develop, gives me that information, how am I going to change my behaviours off the back of it? Do we find there's a bit of a fear around giving feedback?
There's a fear because it's a culture of it's negative. So actually, when we hand in our 360 reviews or things like that, actually a lot of the questions are based around that negative. And sometimes we're scared because it can start to either reinforce those limiting beliefs we have about us or start creating them. And our aim, as you said there, is to take ownership of our own development. And all feedback is, at the lowest common denominator, is awareness. So I'm making you aware of how I saw something, and then I am giving you some feedback on it. And now with awareness, the important thing is a choice. So if someone gives me some negative feedback around something, I don't have to change. I'm just now aware of how I've impacted someone else, and I can choose to change or not. And I think that's where sometimes that fear factor comes in, is actually someone's going to tell me something negative, and our response is, I have to change. I also think when and where we ask for feedback is really important, because those 360s in the businesses I've worked for go out just before your ARP. And we send it to those people that we know are going to send us good feedback, because it's dependent on our pay rise and things like that. And actually, feedback needs to be all based around being the best I can be or being the best others can be. Because that's where that I care personally about someone, and I challenge directly in the feedback that I give, and that radical candor, as Kim Scott says, is really important, because people are getting that clear awareness so we can give them the choice of how they're going to act in the future.
It does happen. I was working with one of the leading hospitals in the country, NHS hospital, this week, and they were talking about the staff satisfaction results had just come in, and they were talking about how lots of the questions were phrased in the negative. And actually that's quite damaging in its own nature. So even the way that we put the feedback, or the way that we want to gather the information, has an impact on on what's coming back, doesn't it? And our interpretation of it.
Definitely. And sometimes, especially around those customer service or staff feedback surveys that we get, we're looking for a result. You know, we've all been to that shop that says, will you fill in a form? Yes. Anything below an 8 is seen as a negative on me. Okay, well, do you want my feedback or don't you? Do you want to improve? Because if you got 9 out of 10 or you got 1 out of 10, it doesn't matter. What's important is I want to get even better. And how can my business, how can I personally be the best that I can be? And I think sometimes we're focusing in on that we want a result, instead of focusing in on what we gave to that conversation, or as a business, what I gave to that customer. And we need to change that mindset of going, no, we're interested on how you interpreted what I give, and actually any feedback on that. So next time I can choose to do something different if I choose to. That is a mindset shift, because a lot of the time we are just looking for reinforced positive feedback. And because we're looking for that, we're scared that if something negative comes in, it will inadvertently create that negative thought in our mind.
Can you imagine doing that? I've been into Halfords and had that exact same conversation where I was buying, I don't know, an inner tube for the bike or something, and a person said to me, the serving me said after, was, you know, can you give me that feedback? And it was literally, if it's not a 10, then I get pulled up on it. You're like, yeah, but your service hasn't been good enough. Yeah. Like, in that moment today, I didn't feel supported. I couldn't find what I was looking for. No one came to help me. Why am I going to give you a 10? Don't make it about that. Make it about, is there a development opportunity from here? So actually, okay, I scored a 7 because the person was very polite once I did get to speak to them. Why wasn't that a 10? Because then there's a learning opportunity from feedback. Isn't that where we're going?
And that's the aim. And you know, if a business trusts their employees, why are they being asked to fill in this survey every time a customer has an interaction first time?
Yeah.
Because actually there should be that trust between the employee and the employer. And then the feedback that is given then needs to work on that development. Actually, how do we know that something wasn't wrong behind the scenes that then caused a negative impact on the customer? Well, without that full honest feedback, we don't know how to do it better in the future. We may even be doing something that adds no value to the customer and actually means that we can stop that process and it's even cheaper to do. But if we put into our customers' minds, well, you know, anything below a 9 is a negative, you're basically putting the pressure on the customer to say, well, are you going to be nice to me or not?
Yeah.
And it isn't about that. It's just about, how did I receive the service today so I can give you awareness of how it made me feel? And that is such a unique opportunity, because that time, that interaction, that space can never be recreated and can never be done again. That's the importance of capturing that information. It's not about an individual, it's about everything and how we can learn to move forward in the future.
Key word in there is opportunity, isn't it? That as a L&D lead, HR manager, directors, there's an opportunity there to go and positively influence through feedback, constructive, positive, however, you know, whatever we need to address. But there's the opportunity to go and make a difference and to allow that individual, the team, the department to grow based on the feedback and to make those changes. Let's unpack a little bit deeper then in terms of the purpose of feedback. Well, tell us a bit more about why we even need to do it.
So the purpose of feedback for me is all around awareness. It's as simple as that. I am going to give another human being, another business, awareness that I feel moves them into a choice space. Without that awareness, there is at least one less option that they can take. And I think when we look at it in that way, actually, people always say feedback's a gift. And it is. So would you take a gift from a child away at Christmas? No. So why do we take feedback away from people? And, you know, we got to focus in on, I give feedback because I want people to be the best that they can be. Whether that's in the job they currently do, whether that's 20 years down the line. Because as leaders, outstanding leadership isn't just about us. It's actually the impact we have on others. And how do we expect to impact others if we steal that awareness away from them by not giving that positive or negative feedback?
So this is outside of the work context. So I coach at rugby. I've coached seniors, all the rest of it. But so I'm currently coaching the under sixes, which my son is in. And we introduced this thing on Sunday just gone, where because we set them up into little teams of 4 to go and play the little games. And we introduced a captain. So this has been going since September. We started with the group, and this is the first time we introduced a captain into the group. And I asked the question at the beginning of the session is, what does a captain do? And actually the responses, and I'm talking like these are 5-year-olds, the responses were unbelievable because they were talking about, well, a captain needs to make sure everyone else is okay, or they need to like sometimes go and be the fastest or do whatever. So a little bit of that kind of lead from the front. And what they did understand was that it was their responsibility for this week, as they're named captain for this week, to make sure the rest of their team are in the right place at the right time, to standing in the right place, to say well done to the others when they do something good. And that to me is all about feedback. And the 5-year-olds were getting it, they're understanding it. And we've got to transfer that into the workplace more often, because what we see a lot of is we are too quick to pick up on the negatives, the things that have gone wrong. And I don't think we celebrate the wins enough. And I'm generalizing a little bit, and it's my experience of all the companies that I've worked with over time.
And I agree. And I'm of the opinion that our thinking creates our reality. And if you look at the human psyche a little bit, we're always looking for dangers. And that goes back to, ancient times and things like that, where, there were threats left, right and centre. Now there isn't those threats, but the brain is still set in that negative way. So what it does is it spots those things that didn't quite go well for us and doesn't go well for others. And you'll notice it when you get in your car after a day at work, you'll probably think about the stuff that didn't quite go right. That speech you done, I missed out that little bit, or I didn't quite land that how I wanted to, instead of that other 19 minutes of the 20-minute speech that went absolutely fantastic. And I think the only way we can focus on what's in our control is start changing our mindset with regards to ourselves. So if we can start giving ourselves that positive feedback, that's what we'll start seeing outside. And that emphasis on, I'm going to give you awareness, both positive and negative, because I want to reinforce what you're great at. And I'm going to help you along for the stuff that you're not, will give everyone the picture and the most choice to be the best that they can be.
So just talk us through some of the situations that we might find ourselves in where we're having to give feedback, or where we should be giving feedback.
Feedback should be constantly given, but it shouldn't be part of a process. So we've all been with that manager that says thank you at the end of the day. What are you thankful for?
For what? Yeah.
For turning up? Well, to be honest, that's my contractual obligation. So it's about making sure that we're clear about what we're giving feedback about. And we'll come on to later about how we can do that. But you need to be in a situation that it can be clearly communicated, and that we can start looking into, actually, this is what we saw, this is maybe what someone felt, this was the reaction, and then I'm going to thank you if it's positive. I might coach you if it's a bit more developmental. But we have to then move some of our feedback from the unconscious to the conscious. That actually, when we're just saying a little comment to someone, thank you very much for doing that. Well, how can we make that a conscious feedback that I want to reinforce a positive? Or sometimes the negatives, where we may even choose to ignore it at times. Well, why have I chosen to ignore it, and things like that? But we are giving feedback constantly, and we should be, because we're interacting with people, and people grow the more they learn. And so actually it's about making sure that we're setting our mindset to give the feedback that we want to give.
A big thing for me, we're not just giving feedback through the words, so through our verbal communication, our body language is giving a lot away as well. So when we're when we are in that one-to-one, whether that's informal at the end of the day, thank you very much for doing X, Y, and Z today, you really helped me with this, or whether that's in a more formal review with your team members, presenting to the team, our body language has got to mirror what we're saying as well, because if it's not, people will pick up on that and they'll think, well, do you know what, you're not being authentic, because I can see in your body language that you don't believe that. So let's be really conscious of that as well. Some of the common challenges we see, often around, I think for me, sort of sensitive topics and giving feedback to people that don't necessarily want to hear it, or we don't want to give it because we're worried about how that's going to come across. I mean, again, is that something that you've experienced?
Oh, definitely. I think we always talk about it being a difficult conversation I'm going to have.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about reframing and that on previous episodes, but actually we need to look at it in a different way of, I am just giving someone awareness. I am just giving feedback. And guess what? Giving feedback, it shouldn't really matter how we feel about it, because actually we're doing it for someone else. So giving feedback can sometimes be awkward and can be a little bit, I'm unsure how I'm going to approach it. But with the right preparation to go in, you know that you're giving the feedback for the right reasons, because you're going in with a growth mindset for this individual. That's what moves you away from, I'm just going to criticize someone, to that real positive space, because you are doing it for the right reasons. You are going, this will be a difficult conversation for me, but I'm going to do it because I want someone to have that awareness to move into a choice. And that's what's the difference between a good leader and a great leader, is they are willing to give up something of themselves to give that feedback. We talked about, people not wanting to receive it at times. Well, actually, again, we can't control whether they're going to act on the feedback. So we're giving it for the right reasons. We're going to challenge them directly in both a positive and a developmental way. But actually, what we're doing is just giving them the choice. If they choose not to act on it, and feedback can be anything from a light little topic all the way to diversity and inclusion in the workplace, we then may have to have a very different conversation with them later in the line. But actually, we are giving them that choice and awareness. And what I've seen in my past, especially when I join a new team, I go in, I observe something, and there's something not quite right with someone. And you're always wary. And you speak to the previous manager and they're like, yeah, I thought the same. Okay, did you ever talk to them about it? No, because they don't really want that feedback. So you go, well, I'm going to do it because I want to give them the awareness. And you give them the feedback and they go, thank you so much. No one's ever told me before.
Yeah.
If someone had just told me, I would have stopped doing X, Y, Z. Thank you. And it's amazing how many of those difficult conversations turn into an appreciation the other side, because you have just given them the awareness to grow as an individual.
That for me is a mindset shift as a leader in an organisation, of giving that feedback, whether we feel comfortable or not, let's not make it about us, let's make it about what this can do for the other person. And I think you're right that often when we do that, the response or the situation is never as bad as we thought it was going to be. And we come out of it in a better state of mind, a better place between both parties. You built up that relationship as well. And something said a few minutes ago that resonates with me, that you alluded to, was sometimes we fluff it up. When we're going to go and give feedback to someone, we fluff it up with a whole load of other stuff first. And all we're doing is softening the blow for us. That's not about the other person. Sometimes, and we're gonna talk about a particular feedback technique in a few minutes' time, it doesn't work particularly well because we're limiting the impact of the message. So get rid of the fluffy bit and let's just go in directly with that message. And there's our questioning techniques that come into this and how we prepare and how we put that message across. But let's not build up with anything, because people know it's coming. I just need to talk to you about this, or this situation here. Unfortunately, because then their mindset is then, okay, what's coming next? Just give me the news. good or bad. Just tell me. Don't build it up. Just tell me exactly what it is.
Completely. What message are you looking to give? Because that message is the same message you're looking to land, and how are people going to land it correctly on that person? Well, if you just say the words of the message you want to land, they take on it. And how they feel is up to them.
Yeah.
We could fluff it up and they could still feel hurt by it.
Yeah.
That's because we have zero control over their feelings. So give them the message for the right reasons, and that's the important thing. If we start fluffing it up, we're not challenging them directly. Actually, we're into that nice area instead of actually getting them to grow with the feedback they're given.
Give us some examples then of where either you've had to give feedback or where you've worked with others to develop their feedback skills.
So we talked a moment ago about the feedback as part of the process, and I had someone come on one of my courses the other day after the first day, and we spoke about appreciation, and she had seen that her manager was just saying thank you at the end of the day. And so she turned round when he said thank you at the end of the day one day, and she went, "What for?" And he didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Because it was just part of the process. I have to say thank you to make people feel good.
Just become a habit, isn't it?
It's just a habit. Yeah. And she then was able to give feedback on saying, well, think how much more impactful it would be if you'd said thank you for X, Y, Z. That me as an individual has made a difference to this business or these customers, etc., through this day. You're giving me awareness at that point. You're giving me appreciation. You're valuing me as an individual, and you're treating me as an individual. Then that's the power that feedback done in the right way can give. And by just saying thank you and devaluing appreciation, not giving people awareness because you're just saying thank you for the day, actually can move people into that choice space and that power place to really move forward and develop in the future.
I was managing this guy 15 plus years ago, and he used to fly off the handle for what felt like just the smallest reasons. And there'd be something gone slightly wrong. You know, and this was when it's probably longer ago than that actually. It was when I was in the health and fitness industry, and he was a studio manager, and something would go slightly wrong, and it'd come in my office and it'd just go mad. It'd just let loose. And what I learned with him is that I had to give him a bit of space. So I had to take him out of that environment, and we went and sat down, and this was a learning opportunity for me to then go, actually, right, come on, let's go and have a chat, offload, tell me what you want, and then I will give feedback on that. So it was the principle that started to really develop in my teaching and my coaching to date, is this theory of ask first, tell later. So for me, giving him that opportunity to offload everything, he got it off his chest in 2 minutes. And actually, as we went through a period of time, the amount of time that he had to spend offloading became less and less because he knew he had that space. And then I was able to come back with, well, this is the reason behind it, or this is what we need to develop, or you need to work on these areas, whatever it might be. But sometimes for me, it's just give them that space to open up first.
Feedback is about that other individual.
Yeah.
And people like to receive feedback in different ways, and we have to understand that about our employees, that feedback isn't just a 360 form, isn't just a conversation in an office. Actually, it's about that individual and how they like to receive it. Because even positive feedback, some people love in a big group getting a bottle of wine. Other people couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
So again, you're doing it with the best of intentions, but actually that person might prefer a little tap on the shoulder, thank you email, because that will mean much, much more than being embarrassed and going in front of a group.
For future reference, I'm happy with a bottle of wine.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's talk about some strategies then. We've just mentioned there about ask first, tell later. Tell us about as everyone would recognise it, I think you know what I'm talking about, with the feedback sandwich. It's normally termed by another name, but let's call it a feedback sandwich.
So the feedback sandwich is, historically your positive, negative, positive. And the reason it was introduced was actually, when we look back in management styles before, it actually was a very much a command and control area. So the feedback you were given was a lot more negative. And as we started to move forward, what we wanted to do was soften that blow, because people were just used to that negative feedback, by using the sandwich approach of, well, actually, we need a leader to think in another way and reinforce some of the good stuff they're doing to keep motivation in the workforce. But actually, what we've done now is we've moved into a much better space of leadership, where naturally we are more balanced between the positive and the negative. So that means when we're giving feedback, we have to make sure that we are landing our message. And what the feedback sandwich does is it lessens our message, because if you've got two positives with the negative in between, how is the employee going to feel at the end? They're going to go, I'm great, possibly. There's a little bit I need to improve, but overall I'm really good. Or they're going to look and go, oh my God, I've got to improve on that. They've said all this stuff, but that's just to soften the blow. So again, go back to that message. What am I looking to say? What am I looking to land? If you want to land positive feedback, give positive feedback. If you want to land negative feedback, land negative feedback, and separate the two. If you want to give both, that's fine. But have two separate meetings, because the person needs to be clear of when they leave the feedback that has been given.
Yeah.
And that's why things such as 360 are really good, because they start separating those questions. So you can then clearly define, yeah, I'm good at that, and I'm going to create a choice that I'm going to carry on doing that. Or, yeah, actually, I agree, I need to improve on those things. So move away from that clouded message. Just clearly land the message that you want to give, let them decode it, and then for them to decide how they want you to help them possibly go forward in the future.
And we recommend using SBI, don't we? Situation, behaviour, impact. So give us just a little bit of insight into what that is.
Again, it's about a clear message. So SBI, so the situation, behaviour, impact, is all basically facts, or how I thought. So I saw the situation as this, the behaviour I saw was this, and the impact I witnessed was this. Actually, you're not putting in any emotion. You're not taking in an interpretation. You are basically going, here's some facts. Now, the important thing in my eyes with SBI is we can go two routes after we've given it. So we go, the situation was this, the behaviour was this, and the impact was really positive. Thank you so much. It was really good. Or situation was this, behaviour was this, impact wasn't the best. Coach, ask those questions. You've given the facts. Don't start giving more.
Yeah.
Actually, if you can go straight into that questioning mode, where then the other person is starting to lead the conversation, and so lead their own development, so taking personal responsibility of their own development, that is that magic space. Because sometimes you can land negative feedback and they won't change, because you've basically just told them it wasn't right. If we move into that coaching mode, they're starting to take ownership on their next steps.
Yeah, I agree. So we look at something, let's take this situation. We're given some feedback. So that report you presented to the board this morning, you had lots of energy in there. You understood the facts and the figures, so you clearly done your research. The impact of that is then that the board have gone away with a really clear understanding of what, I don't know, the data or the information that came out of that report. So let's make it really simple. You know, the example you used earlier on around thanking someone at the end of the day, the difference of a thank you versus a, hey, thanks for sorting out that customer issue today. I thought you dealt with that perfectly. Your tone of voice was really good. Your explanation, your empathy with them was brilliant. That means that customer has gone away from a difficult situation and they will come back. So we'll get some repeat business off it. It's a really simple way to give feedback, leaving no doubt about what's happened and the behaviours in it. And that for me works in the positive, and it works in the, hey, we've got some developments here, we need to make some changes, because the impact of your behaviours there were negative towards your team. They were toxic. They were, and I'm going down the really sort of further end of the spectrum in terms of negative, but right, you've been toxic. That's having an impact on your teammate. Your teammate and how they're performing, your behaviour is impacting on them. Right? We need to change that. We need to do something about that.
Yep, definitely.
And that's where SBI is the game changer for me in terms of that. Look, let's wrap it up with the top three leadership sound bites. What have you got for us, Darren? What's your top three?
So ask first, tell later. So even before SBI, what we really want to do is, we've seen a situation that maybe didn't go as positively as we wanted. Actually, we want to understand and get even more facts first, because we could have missed something. We may have not witnessed something. We may have heard it through the grapevine a little bit. So what we don't want to do is jump in and assume. Actually, let's ask some questions first. Okay, the situation was how I saw it. Can I just give you some feedback on what I saw? SBI, right, now coach. So you mentioned this, I've mentioned this. Why have you moved to those decisions? What are the reasons? All of those things. And it moves that personal responsibility away from us back onto the employee, just by asking that question first. That I think is really important. I think secondly, it's that lead with empathy, and lead with that I care about someone personally. And I think that really starts linking into, if we want a positive feedback culture where feedback is being given up and down the hierarchy, left and right, and, you know, if we're talking about Johari's box, really open box, that needs to come from the leader. That they care about people, but they also create vulnerability about themselves. So the more that we disclose about ourselves and the stuff that we're working on, maybe I've listened to this podcast, I'm going to try different conversations when I do feedback. Can you let me know how it felt for you? We start opening that blind box, and that creates a safe space for people to try new things, because feedback isn't seen as someone criticizing me, but someone looking to catch me and help me to be the best that I can be. And that all comes from that true empathy, because I care about people. And because of that, I'm going to challenge them directly and give them that awareness. And then thirdly, it's all around the planning. So actually, feedback shouldn't just be, I'm just going to give it.
Yeah.
Actually, for it to be properly land, for you to properly care about someone, we need to think, we may need to rehearse, we may need to practice. And the more we do it, the more naturally it becomes. And actually, there's loads of stuff being used at the moment in the AI world where we can start practicing just giving feedback in both the right way and the wrong way. How are people reacting to that will actually create that habit in our mind. So when we move into that situation in real life, we've got that training done. And unconsciously, you'll use your SBI, you'll use your ask first, tell later, because we're starting to get that training for ourselves.
Brilliant, Darren. Thanks so much. For me, it's all around preparation and SBI, and let's make it simple, make it clear on our own minds. And if we do that, then other people will understand the message that we are trying to land, as you say. So thank you very much for your insights. Guys, thank you very much for listening today as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time. The Sound Leadership Podcast was produced by Media First. To learn more about the media crisis and communications training, visit mediafirst.co.uk. The editor and producer was Darren Wingham. The show was hosted, written and researched by me, Dan Boniface. A special thanks to all the team at Media First and the BCF Group for supporting the development of this podcast. To learn more about the management, leadership, training and coaching that the BCF Group offer, visit thebcfgroup.co.uk or get in touch by emailing hello@thebcfgroup.co.uk. Finally, a special thanks to our exceptional guest today, who you can contact via the BCF Group.